Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is the game preview ahead of our Premier League fixture against Leicester City at Goodison Park tomorrow. Very difficult game for Everton Football Club, of course, coming off the back of a fantastic 3-0 win against Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup 4th round. Coming into this game with the confidence and the momentum taken from that FA Cup fixture after, of course, having a little bit of an extended break off, due to our game against Aston Villa in the Premier League being postponed. So we actually haven't played in the Premier League for over 2 weeks, I believe it'll be. And I actually think that game against Sheffield Wednesday was really important to have, to allow the players to get back into the swing of things, get a win under the belt, get a little bit of confidence, a little bit of momentum back, or for the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison to get a goal each and sort of get their confidence back up after a couple of games without a goal. I think it was really important. And we're coming up against a really strong Leicester City side. The Leicester City side who, of course, we did beat only a few weeks ago away from home at the King Power Stadium with a fantastic result. But this is going to be, very difficult tomorrow. They're currently sitting third in the Premier League, 12 wins, 2 draws and 5 losses. Everton, of course, being one of those losses earlier on in the season. And they're a team that are bang on fire. They've got the likes of Harvey Barnes, who's been brilliant recently. The likes of James Maddison, who's been brilliant recently. The likes of Youri Tielemans as well. No Jamie Vardy, which of course is a big benefit to Everton Football Club. Jamie Vardy very often comes and scores against Everton, doesn't he? He's one of those players who you can pretty much guarantee a goal for every time he comes to Goodison Park or every time he comes up against Everton. He is out injured, I believe, so he won't feature. However, Leicester have still got a whole plethora of fantastic players. The likes of James Maddison, the likes of Youri Tielemans have been really good in recent weeks and months. So it will be very difficult, but ultimately it's a fantastic test for Carlo Ancelotti's Everton side, and it'll be a fantastic test for us to determine whereabout we are. Because if we can go out and we can beat Leicester and we can get the 3 points and we can do the double over them and only be 3 points behind them with 2 games in hand, then it shows that we are in and around that sort of level of fighting at the top of the league. Now, again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself and start talking about a title challenge or even talking about fighting for the Champions League, because I know there'll be games this season where we're sitting here and we're saying, that game proves that we're still in a transition season. That game proves that we're not the finished article. We'll lose games of football, and we'll lose games of football to sides that you look at and you think we shouldn't have lost there, and that's all part and parcel of being in a transition season and understanding that we need to add more quality to the team and understanding that we're not the finished article yet. However, this game will be a really good indicator as to where we are, because if we can go out and we can beat Leicester, that's a fantastic result. It's at Goodison Park, which again, gives us the advantage, even though there's no home crowd and even though it's not what it would usually be like at Goodison Park. It's still an advantage to the players being at home and knowing where they are. But we've been better away from home recently, so again, it's going to be a big test. Like I said, Leicester are on absolutely fantastic form. Beat Brentford last time out in the FA Cup, 3-1 victory. Did go 1-0 behind in that game, but managed to get back into it. Beat Chelsea, of course, just before then, 2-0. Southampton before that, 2-0. Who were a very good team as well this season. And they beat Stoke in the FA Cup 3rd round, I believe it was, 4-0 the week before that. So they're on absolutely fantastic form, and not only that, but you did a really good, strong side. They're a side that can definitely cause us issues, and ultimately, if we do not give 100% tomorrow, then Leicester will turn up and they'll beat Everton, and that's sort of the motivation for these players. And Carlo Ancelotti mentioned that in his press conference today. He spoke about how if we're going to win this game, every single player has to give 100%. We can't, afford to have an off day. We can't afford to sort of, turn up and just expect to win. Really, it's not going to be the same game as it was a few weeks ago at the King Power Stadium. Like I said, where Everton are probably going to shape up a little bit differently. That game, we didn't have Luca Dean available. Ben Godfrey played left back. We had that solid back line of 4 centre-backs, Godfrey, Mina, Keane and Holgate, and it worked really well, and maybe Carlo Ancelotti will look to do that again tomorrow, but then you sort of look at it and you think, well, where does Luca Dean fit into that? Because we know how good Luca Dean is, we know how much he creates, we know how important he is to this Everton team and how integral he is to this Everton team. So Carlo Ancelotti had his pre-game press conference today. He did say that Alex Iwobi and Luca Dean are fit for this game as expected. He mentioned it just before the game against Sheffield Wednesday. He said that they'd both be out of that game, but they should be back for the Leicester game, and that is exactly what Carlo Ancelotti has confirmed earlier on today. He said the only players who aren't available are Alan, Abdoulaye Doucouré, of course, as he is suspended, Nazem Kunku, Jean-Philippe Gbamin, and Fabian Delph. Alan, Gbamin, and Delph, of course, being injured. I think Nkunku's got a little injury as well. And like I said, Abdoulaye Doucouré being ruled out with that suspension after picking up a yellow card against Wolves and making it his 5th of the season. And again, massive miss for Everton. Everton are coming into this game with a severely weakened central midfield, of course, to be the first time, I think, this season that we've played without both Alan and Doucouré. And that is a worry, ultimately, because when you go back to last season and when you go back to Everton's midfield before Alan come into the club and before Doucouré come into the club, it was worrying. We were losing games of football. We were being completely overrun. We didn't have any energy in there. We didn't have any intensity in there. And it's being spoken about today, the possibility of maybe a Mason Holgate slotting into central midfield or a Ben Godfrey slotting into central midfield. And Carlo Ancelotti was asked directly about the possibility of Mason specifically playing in the centre of the park, and he said, look, we've got Tom Davies, who he's been impressed with recently and who, has come in and done exactly what he's been asked to do. We've had Andre Gomez, who's impressed over the last couple of games ago, also picking up a couple of assists. And he said, Mason's there. We've got the option of playing Mason Holgate in midfield. I tweeted that quote out, and I think maybe a couple of people got a little bit confused and thought that Carlo Ancelotti actively brought up the opportunity for Mason to play in central midfield, or actively brought up the fact that he is an option, but he didn't. He was asked directly a question as, basically, is Mason Holgate an option for central midfield? And he just answered that and said yes. So he didn't bring it up off his own back. If he did, then it'd be sort of like, right, okay, maybe that's in his thought process, but it wasn't. It was a question posed to him, and he answered that question. Albeit, he did say that he's an option and it's a possibility. So we don't know. Of course, we will get into my predicted starting 11 in a moment, but that is going to be, again, an integral part to this game. Look, we saw Everton turn up against Wolves a couple of weeks ago and beat a decent Wolves side, albeit they're not in great form, but beat a decent Wolves side with no striker on the pitch. We had Sigurdsson playing in a false nine. We had Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who obviously wasn't fit to play. I think Richarlison wasn't fit to play on that day as well. So, again, we haven't had a full-strength side. Talking Alan, Doucouré, James, Richarlison, Dean, Calvert-Lewin. We haven't had a full-strength side since the opening few games of the season. There's always been the odd player out. There's always been the odd injury that ultimately hinders us. Look, we had Luca Dean out for a couple of months, which hindered us massively creative-wise. Same with James Rodriguez. We had Dominic Calvert-Lewin out against Wolves, which meant that we didn't have that striker running in behind players. Richarlison's had some time out. Alan's been out for the last, couple of months or so, which we know has been a massive miss in that centre of midfield. Yes, Tom Davies has stepped in and done a decent job, but he doesn't bring exactly what Alan brings. But having both Alan and Abdoulaye Doucouré missing for this game just makes it 10 times more difficult for Everton to go out there and get a result. And it also means that if Everton do go out there and get a result, it's 10 times as big as it would have been with Doucouré being available or with Alan being available, because again, we are reverting back to that central midfield of last season, who was, overrun practically in near enough every game that they played, certainly in that lockdown period. So it will be really, really interesting to see who Carlo Ancelotti lines up with, given the fact that, Abdoulaye Doucouré brings that presence in midfield. He brings that energy, he brings that intensity, he brings that ability to drive the ball forward. And without Abdoulaye Doucouré in there, yes, you could put Andre Gomez in there, but he isn't going to do that. Yes, you could put Tom Davies in there, who probably will play, but he ain't going to do that either. So we're severely lacking energy in the centre of the midfield without Abdoulaye Doucouré in there, and I think that's going to be an issue, certainly given the fact that Like I said, some of Leicester's best players at the moment, Youri Tielemans, Harvey Barnes, James Maddison, all play across that midfield. And we know notoriously it's been Jamie Vardy who's caused us issues and caused us problems. And Jamie Vardy's out this game, which is a massive boost for Everton, because I don't think Leicester City have got a striker who is on that level of Jamie Vardy. I don't think they've got a Premier League winning striker other than him. So when he's out, that's a boost for Everton. But again, we have to make sure that we aren't overrun in midfield. We absolutely have to make sure that we aren't overrun in midfield, because they've got a lot of creative players, and if they create 50 chances, the likelihood is 1 or 2 of them are going to go in, even without Jamie Vardy on the pitch. So as much as we have to be solid defensively, we also have to make sure that we don't completely get overrun, and we can, put up that fight in the centre of midfield. But like I said before, this is going to be a big test for Everton, but definitely a test that we can overcome. Ultimately, we beat this Leicester side, as in fact a stronger Leicester side, the Leicester side with Jamie Vardy in, only a few weeks back at the King Power Stadium, and we didn't have a full strength team in that game either. We had Luca Dean out in that game, like we mentioned, so we were lacking that creativity. I don't think Hammers played in that game either, correct me if I'm wrong. And like I said, we've come up against tough oppositions this season, and we've managed to beat them. We've managed to get the 3 points, even with key players out injured, even with a weakened side. So again, Carlo Ancelotti is the Everton manager, and this side, like I said, hasn't been full strength, if you like, since the first few weeks of the season. Yet we've beaten Chelsea, we've beaten Arsenal, we've beaten Leicester, we've beaten Wolves, both Leicester and Wolves being away from home. We've beaten Sheffield United, who were desperate for a win. So I don't put anything past this Everton team, and I've got confidence that we can go out and get something tomorrow. Will it be very, very difficult? Absolutely, it will be very difficult, certainly, with, like I said, those 2 midfield players out. Is it impossible? No, it's not. If we've got a front 3 or a front 4 of Iwobi, Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison and James Rodriguez, look at what James Rodriguez done the other day against Sheffield Wednesday. He was creating opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and if he's on the pitch and he's doing that, then we've got as much chance as any of going out and getting a couple of goals against Leicester. And then maybe if we do go out and get a couple of goals, we can sort of sit back and go, right, okay, let's just put 8 men behind the ball and defend this now. A little bit like we did in the reverse fixture, where we got a couple of goals on the break and we defended really, really well. But it's going to be difficult, but it'll be a big test for Everton, and it will certainly show us where Everton are at the moment. If we go out and we beat Leicester again, then we've done the double against them in a matter of weeks. We're 3 points behind them with 2 games in hand, and they're a title contender according to a lot of football fans. So there's every reason as to why Everton should be in that conversation. Now, I don't want to get my hopes up, and I don't think anybody should get their hopes up, because I still think there's couple of games, maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe more games this season that Everton are going to slip up in, and we're going to get that big reality check of, right, okay, this is a transition season. We need to improve. We need to improve the squad, etc., etc. But the more confidence that these players have, the more belief that these players have, and the more times that they go out and show it, the more times that they go out and put performances in, even though they've got a weakened squad, and they go out and they get results, and they go out and get the 3 points, certainly against sides like Leicester, who are well up there this season, then we have to be positive, and we have to sort of think, hang on, maybe something can happen this season. I'm not saying we're going to win the league title or we're going to finish in the Champions League, but if we beat Leicester tomorrow, why shouldn't we be talking about finishing the Champions League? We're in as good a position as anybody in that top 4 or 5 to finish in the Champions League if we go out and we can beat a side that are right up there this season. It won't be easy, of course, but again, this is an Everton team managed by one of the best managers ever to walk the earth, and I think we should have complete and utter trust and faith in Carlo Ancelotti and this Everton team. So anyway, let's get into my predicted starting 11 ahead of this one. Then we won't waste any more time. I'm going for Jordan Pickford in goal. No issues with Robin Olsen whatsoever against Sheffield Wednesday. Thought he was really, really good. Done exactly what he needed to do. Strong performance. Yes, he didn't have an awful lot hit at him, but what he had to deal with, he dealt with really, really well. But I just think that Jordan Pickford will return for this game. In the same way as that after Robin Olsen put in a really good performance at the King Power a few weeks back when we beat Leicester, I thought in that the game following that Jordan Pickford had started, and he did. And again, I think we're seeing this a lot this season with Olsen and Pickford is they're alternating, and one, if Olsen plays, you're pretty much guaranteed for Jordan Pickford to play the next game. It's not like Jordan was dropped. It's not like he was taken out of the team for any other reason other than to just give him a rest, really. And some might disagree with that. Again, no issue with Robin Olsen. Thought he'd done really, really well the other day, but I just think it'll be Jordan Pickford that starts. Now the back line, then, this is where it gets a little bit different. I've put Luca Dean at left back. There will be a lot of shouts for Ben Godfrey to play left back, and understandably so. Obviously, in the reverse fixture to this game, he was very, very solid. And that defensive back line of Godfrey, Mina, Keane and Holgate appear to be our best defensive back line for shutting out goals. But the conundrum that Carlo Ancelotti ultimately has, and the selection headache that Carlo Ancelotti ultimately has, is that when you play that back line, which is absolutely fantastic, defensively brilliant, you then losing out on the creativity of Luca Dean. Luca Dean returned to first team action a couple of weeks ago against Wolves, and you'd be seen within a matter of minutes what we'd missed from Luca Dean. He played against Rotherham, of course, in the Cup. He done okay, but the Wolves game, obviously, he was playing in that role a little bit further forward with Ben Godfrey playing as a left back, and that's a possibility. But again, that was because Richarlison was still not fit to start the game. But we've seen within the first 10 or 15 minutes the ability of Luca Dean and the creativity that he brings. He assisted Alex Iwobi's goal within the opening 6 minutes of that game. So you sort of look at the defensive back line now and you're thinking, well, does Carlo Ancelotti go with that defensive back line of Godfrey, Godfrey, Holgate, Mina and Keane? Those 4 centre-backs across the back line who are very good defensively but don't really get forward much and rely on the counter-attack? Or does he play the best left-back in the country whose creativity is just out of this world? I think Luca Dean will play tomorrow. I really, really do. And I'm going to explain that a little bit later on in the predicted starting 11 when we talk about Mason Holgate and Ben Godfrey a little bit more. Like I said, I think Richarlison will start. Massive confidence boost for him getting that goal against Sheffield Wednesday. He'll obviously naturally start as the left wing player, I assume. And that means that if Luca Dean is to play, it's going to have to be at left back. I think it would be silly for Luca Dean to sit out of this one. I've gone for Yerry Mina and Michael Keane at centre back. I was really, really impressed with Mason Holgate at centre back, to be fair. Against Sheffield Wednesday, didn't do anything wrong, to be honest with you. Again, similar situation to Robin Olsen, didn't have an awful lot to do throughout the game, but he didn't do anything wrong whatsoever. But again, Michael Keane has to come back into this Everton team, absolutely has to come back in. And I remember watching the Sheffield Wednesday game, and I think it was Steve McManaman and whoever he was commentating with was talking about, they were talking about bringing players back into the team, and he said, Carlo Ancelotti's going to have a difficult time if he's going to change this backline. Who comes into this backline? And granted, they were playing well at the time, but I thought Michael Keane's been our best centre-half for a matter of months and months and months now. And yes, Yerry Mina's been very, very solid, and I think Yerry Mina's been brilliant this season, but Michael Keane has been just absolutely head and shoulders. And the reason as to why he didn't play against Sheffield Wednesday was because he was being rested to play for this game, and which is a massive, massive game. I think his presence, his dominance in the air, his ability, I just think he's absolutely going to play, and rightly so. Michael Keane and Yerry Mina, for me, are our best centre-back partnership. They've been very, very solid this season. They've been very, very consistent this season, and the pair of them deserve to be playing. They haven't done anything wrong, and like I said, they've got that partnership now, which they both seem to know what each other does well, and both seem to know what each other doesn't do quite well, and they cover up for that, and I think that's absolutely excellent. And it's what we've been missing for a long time, and now that they've got that stability and they've got that consistency over the last few months or so, I think we have to run with that. And then I've gone with Ben Godfrey at right back. Now again, obviously Seamus Coleman played in the game against Sheffield Wednesday midweek. Now, usually when Seamus plays in a midweek game, or he plays at the weekend and we've got a midweek game, you don't usually see him starting the next game because obviously of stamina reasons and the fact that he did play, I think, the entire 90 minutes on Sunday night. And ultimately, again, I think defensively, we're probably best with somebody like Ben Godfrey. Now, obviously, Mason Holgate is in with a shout for this position, and it was between Mason Holgate or Ben Godfrey, and the other was going to play in another position that we'll go on to talk about in a second. But for me, I just think as a defender, I think Ben Godfrey is the more assured defender. I think he's got more natural pace than Mason. I think he's got I don't want to say he's got a better defending ability than Mason, because Mason's a very, very, very good defender, but I just think he's more physically demanding than Mason Holgate. I just think he's more of a presence. He's more of that type of player that when players are running against him, they're thinking, I've got a battle here, he's going to go flying through me, he's going to go right into me. You know, he's more of that presence defensively, and he's shown that he can play at right back since he's been at the football club. He's shown he can play at left back, he's shown he can play at centre half. So I just think that we might see Ben Godfrey back in at right back, and again, I wouldn't really have any big issues with that. Don't think Seamus Coleman will start because of playing that 90 minutes against Sheffield Wednesday, and I think it'll be a toss-up between Mason and Ben Godfrey, because, you know, it's likely Luca Dean will start at left back, which is understandable, so then, you know, it's between one of those two. But I've gone for Ben Godfrey at right back. Going into the centre of midfield then, I've gone for Tom Davies, James Rodriguez and Mason Holgate. Now we'll talk about Tom first, and then we'll go on to talk about James and Mason. Tom Davies was spoken about by Carlo Ancelotti today. Carlo Ancelotti was asked about midfield options. He was asked about whether Mason's a midfield option. He said yes, Mason is an option, but he said he's been happy with Tom Davies. He's been satisfied with what he's done, and I think he also made the comment and said Tom will play tomorrow. Again, Tom Davies is a player that splits opinion at the moment, you know, with Evertonians. Is he as good as Alan? No, he's not. Is he, you know, is this age-old argument at the moment surrounding Tom Davies? I feel that's like, well, if we want to be a top 4 team, if we want to be fighting for titles, Tom Davies isn't good enough to be in the team, and that's absolutely fair enough. But the reality of the situation is when we've got everybody fit, Tom Davies isn't in this Everton team. He isn't starting in this Everton team. Alan and Abdoulaye Doucouré start in this Everton team. So it's very difficult to say, if we want to be challenging for the top 4, if we want to be challenging for the top 6, Tom Davies isn't good enough to be in this team. That would be completely understandable if he was starting week in, week out, even with a full-strength Everton side. But he doesn't start week in, week out with a full-strength Everton side. He starts when we've got injury problems. He starts when Alan isn't available, when Abdoulaye Doucouré isn't available, and I don't think Tom Davies has done that bad recently. I really, really don't. Does he blow anybody's skate up? No. Does he move forward with the ball an awful lot? No. Does he assist? Does he get involved with the goals? No. But what he does, I think he does alright. He breaks the play up, he throws challenges in, his pass completion's been decent. Yes, it's not 40-yard worldies like James is producing. Yes, it's probably only 5-10 yard passes sideways and maybe even backwards, which is frustrating. I understand that, but he's not particularly doing anything awfully wrong at the moment, and Carlo Ancelotti very clearly trusts him, and Carlo Ancelotti very clearly thinks he's doing a good enough job, and that's enough for me. That is absolutely enough for me. There's little point in us going in on Tom Davies and, you know, berating Tom Davies when he's getting played week in, week out by one of the best managers ever to grace the earth, and that manager is looking at Tom Davies thinking, you're good enough to step in and do a job here. Is he good enough to start week in, week out when everybody's fit? No, and he won't. Alan will be starting in that position week in, week out when everybody's fit, but for me, he's good enough to fill a role, he's good enough to do a job, and Carlo Ancelotti clearly thinks that as well. So Tom Davies starts in the centre of midfield. I've gone with James Rodriguez. Now, there was a massive temptation for James to play on the right-hand side, but obviously Alex Iwobi's coming back into the team. He has been very, very good recently. Fantastic goal against Wolves, which I think will do him a world of confidence. Could have got a second one against Wolves not so long after that. He's just getting better and better and better, isn't he? His overall play, his ability to take players on, his strength, his power, his pace on the ball. And like I said, that goal against Wolves, which will have just done him the absolute world of confidence. Didn't play against Sheffield Wednesday, so he has had quite a while out to rest and recuperate and stuff. And talking about Alex Iwobi, of course. And you're not playing James tomorrow, are you? Let's be honest. James Rodriguez plays every single day of the week. Every single day of the week. He was absolutely exceptional against Sheffield Wednesday. I don't care for this, you were playing championship opposition, they're this, they're that, they're the other. I'm not interested. He was asked to do a job, he stepped in and he done a job against what was in front of him, and he was absolutely exceptional. And let's be perfectly honest with ourselves. Even when James Rodriguez plays on the right hand side, he doesn't really play on the right hand side, does he? He comes inside, he comes into the centre of the park, he's playing on the left, he comes back, he drops into the central defensive position. He does everything, so he doesn't really stick to that one position, and in doing that and in not sticking to that one position, it means that you can put him in central midfield, you can play him in the number 10 role, because he's always going to float about. He's not going to stick to one specific position. If he's playing in the 10 tomorrow, or he's playing in central midfield, he'll probably be out on the right on a number of occasions, he'll probably be out on the left. He loves that switch ball to Luca Dean, which has been so successful for Everton this season, so expect to see him on the right hand side, playing that ball over the top. But I think if we can have him in the squad, and we can also have Alex Iwobi in the squad with the direct runs and getting past players and forcing players into decisions, then I think that just gives us that little bit more. So I've gone for James in the centre of the park, in that number 10 role, if you like, where he obviously has spent most of his career. And then I've gone with Mason Holgate next to him. Now, this is a preferred rather than a prediction, really. I think we're more likely to see Andre Gomes, Tom Davies and Sigurdsson as a midfield three. In fact, we're probably more likely to see Tom Davies, Sigurdsson and James as a midfield three, with Alex Iwobi on the right hand side and Richarlison on the left, and obviously Dom up front. But the little bit of optimism in me wants to see Mason Holgate or Ben Godfrey, but I think it's more likely to be Mason playing in the centre of the midfield. One big factor of this game is not having Abdoulaye Doucouré or Alan in the team. Now, if Abdoulaye Doucouré was available, if Abdoulaye Doucouré wasn't suspended, then this wouldn't even be a conversation. The conversation would be who is left out the team between Ben Godfrey and Mason Holgate. The conversation wouldn't be, does one of the two play in midfield, because we'd have that energy, we'd have that powerful presence in the centre midfield in Abdoulaye Doucouré. But the reality of the situation is we've got no Doucouré, who has got the pace and the power and the ability in the centre midfield. We've got no Alan, who's throwing the challenges in and picking the balls up. So we're left with a midfield that is in fact, it's not very similar, it's the same midfielders as it was last season. Now, obviously, James may play in there, and he wasn't involved in the squad last season, of course, we know that, and he adds that element of something that nobody else can bring in terms of that quality and that just magic that he has. But the other two players behind them or around them, for me, you have to have somebody in there with energy. You have to have a high-intensity player who's going to be able to keep up with the likes of Yuri Tielemans, with the likes of James Maddison, with the likes of Harvey Barnes. If we've got Tom Davies and Gomez in there, or Tom Davies and Sig, and I think Gomez has done really well recently, and I think he's starting to show his confidence a little bit more. And again, I don't want to sit in and go in on Andre Gomez, because he has looked a lot better. He's got 2 assists in 2 games, and they were 2 fantastic assists, to be fair to him. But even an Andre Gomez looking better, still hasn't got the energy to be able to play in a midfield with 2 other players who haven't got energy as well. We could potentially put out a very slow central midfield tomorrow, and that might work. And Carlo Ancelotti picks that, then you've got to have complete trust and faith in Carlo Ancelotti, because that might work. But the reality of the situation is, for me, I think we need more energy. I think we need more pace. I think we need more intensity, and I think Mason Holgate brings that. We've seen him play in central midfield once for Everton before, against Manchester United last season. He done that job well. Obviously, Ben Godfrey's played in central midfield before as well on loan at Shrewsbury. We know he can play there. But I just feel like with the absence of Doucouré and with the absence of Alan, we absolutely need energy in that centre midfield. We really do, because Leicester are going to be looking at us thinking, right, okay, they've got 2 of their best central midfielders out there. If we can overrun them in midfield, then we've got a good chance of winning this game. And like I said, defensively, we have to be spot on, we have to be quality, we have to be strong, we have to be solid. But the midfield has to really do a job tomorrow as well. And I just think if you put Mason in there, it's, it'll be a tactic that Leicester won't have prepared for and won't understand or won't really know what to do with. B, it adds that energy that I don't think any natural centre midfielder we've got can add. So there you go, there are my midfield 3, Tom Davies, James Rodriguez and Mason Holgate. And then I mentioned it then, front 3 of Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Alex Iwobi. Alex Iwobi returning to the team for me, being very good recently. Probably would be harsh to leave him out. He may leave him out because he may prefer the front 3 of James, Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, to which I have very little issue with, because they've been very good when they've started together. But I think Alex Iwobi has been very solid recently. He's showing that pace, he's showing that intensity, he's showing that ability to take players on and to beat players and to show his power and to show his ability on the ball, and I'd have absolutely no issue with him being in the team. I think he's been great. And then Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, I think, are absolute certs for me as well. Both Got a goal, of course, against Sheffield Wednesday, which I think will do massive amounts for their confidence. I said it before the Sheffield Wednesday game. If Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison start, then for me, it's a big chance for them to get a goal, end that sort of mini goal drought that they've had, and then come into this game on Wednesday with a lot of confidence and with the tails up. Richarlison, of course, scored against Leicester last time out, loves a goal against Leicester, and it'd be really nice to see him get another one tomorrow, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin get on the score sheet as well. And let's be honest, the pair of them are going to play, unless barring something insane, in which touchwood doesn't happen. There's a wooden desk below me if you're wondering what I've just touched. Both of them are going to play, and absolutely rightly so. So there you go. That is my predicted starting 11. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Do you agree with me? Do you think that Luca Dean will be back in at left back and that will leave either Mason Holgate or Ben Godfrey to play at right back? Do you think that we should have either Mason Holgate or Ben Godfrey in the centre of midfield? And as well as that, as well as what you believe should happen, do you think Carlo Ancelotti will do that? Can you imagine being sat here tomorrow night at 7 o'clock and Carlo Ancelotti has put Mason Holgate or Ben Godfrey in the centre of midfield? I personally can't, but I really would like him to do so, because I think it would inject that little bit of energy that we so desperately need, certainly without Abdoulaye Doucouré and Alan in there. So there you go. That is my predicted starting 11. Look, it's going to be a difficult game of football for Everton tomorrow. Really difficult game of football. We're coming up against a strong Leicester side. A Leicester side who have been in absolutely fantastic form so far this season. A Leicester side who, granted, are without their top goal scorer and their best, I don't want to say best player, but, their most influential player on football games, but they've still got a lot of talent. Cesar Under, who's come in this season, has been fantastic. James Maddison, Yuri Tielemans, Harvey Barnes, who have been really impressed with as well. They've got a solid defensive back line as well, so it's going to be difficult. It is going to be difficult. We've got the home advantage, and like I said, this could be a big statement. Do I believe Everton can win tomorrow? Absolutely. Do I expect Everton to win? Absolutely. And you might think you're stupid saying that, but this Everton side under Carlo Ancelotti, given the games in which we've won this season, given the mentality changes that we seem to have had, I expect this side to go out and put in a performance tomorrow. And if we do go out and put in a performance, then I expect us to go out and win. We beat them a few weeks ago, a strong Leicester side a few weeks ago at their ground. So why can't we go out and do it again? Granted, it'll be more difficult because we haven't got Abdoulaye Doucouré. I don't think Alan played in that reverse fixture. I think he might have went off in that game. But granted, we haven't got Abdoulaye Doucouré, so it's going to be a lot more difficult. But still, absolute, no reason as to why we can't go out there and get the 3 points tomorrow. And if we do, then I think it's a massive win. And it's a big opportunity. So let's hope that we can do that. Listen, if you have enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. We will be back with the instant match reaction and the player ratings tomorrow. Like I said, sorry that this video is not a live. It's a video. I had a little bit of got caught up with a couple of things after work, so I thought I'd just do it as a video instead so we can get it out as soon as possible. Massive thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Massive game for Everton tomorrow. Let's hope we can go out there and get the 3 points, and what a 3 points it would be. Big thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.